Hello my friends, and welcome back to our channel, Home is Where Our Heart Is. My name is Dane, author of this series of books, Knowledge to Forage. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and thank you all for joining me here today, where I'm absolutely blessed to be spending my morning out frolicking through this little traditional English village that's full of little cottages, and its winding country roads are covered in an abundance of a plant that goes by the name of hogweed, more famously known as common hogweed. Common hogweed is a very misunderstood plant today. Many foragers fear it because it could be mistaken for its big scary brother, giant hogweed, and because it grows in such an abundance, it's often disregarded as just a common weed. But common hogweed is anything but a boring old weed, and we believe in our channel that every single plant, tree, mushroom or bird deserves equal celebration and education. So if you're interested, then come for a wander down these country roads with me, and we'll dive into the world of the common hogweed. Would you take a look at this finely carved hedge here? Wow! So here we've bumped into our tall, handsome friend here, the hogweed, common hogweed. Now this plant loves to grow along pathways, along the sides of roads and hedges. You won't really find it growing in the woods where it's shady. It thrives outside, and it grows in an abundance pretty much all around the world. It's native to Europe, Africa and Asia, and you can find it growing in places like North America. Now, common hogweed is a perennial, which means it comes back year after year after year. And what it does, it's in its first year's growth, when its seed germinates within the warm soil, it grows roots, sets a foundation, and it grows down low to the ground in a small bundle of leaves. Then, when it's ready, when the sun starts to shine in summer, it will grow up tall like this, developing its big, large leaves and its beautiful umbel flowers that they smell like the countryside to me. They have a fresh musk. Now these flowers are white, but sometimes they can be flushed with pink. And this plant, we can tell it's in the carrot family because of these white umbels. These flowering umbels, these white flowers, are a great gift to wildlife, and they'll be pollinated by bees, butterflies, flies, or beetles, and transform into the hogweed seeds. And these seeds will fall to the ground, or be blown off in the wind, or even fall into a river and drift away. And then they'll lay dormant for a while until their time's right and grow up into a new hogweed plant. And this plant, once it's gone to seed and the autumn comes and the winter comes, it will die back down underground, hiding in its roots underground, waiting till the weather warms up next year to do it all over again. Ah, what a glorious fresh summer's morning. It was blazing hot yesterday in the sunshine. Today it's cloudy and cool, making it a great temperature to have a nice wander through the countryside. Now, common hogweed is edible and medicinal, but before we dive into all that, we have to understand how to identify common hogweed, and also how to tell the difference between common hogweed and its big scary brother, giant hogweed. Now, to identify common hogweed is actually super simple once we know how. You see, firstly, it grows all the way up to around 5 to 6 feet tall. And when we go down to its base and follow up its stem, we can see it's covered in white coarse hair. The stem is green and it has these ridges running up it. Once we get higher up, we can see the stem branches off into white flower umbels. Umbels means looking like an umbrella. And these little umbrella are covered in little bundles of white flowers. And then when we go to its leaves, we can see its leaves are deeply lobed, dark green, and they have these kind of rounded edges. Now let's learn how to tell the difference between giant hogweed and common hogweed. What we'll do is, firstly, we'll identify giant hogweed. We don't have any with us here today, unfortunately, but we'll use the power of editing and imagination, and then we'll compare giant hogweed to common hogweed so we can tell the difference and highlight the key differences between the two. So firstly, giant hogweed lives up to its name. It literally grows all the way up to 10 to 20 feet tall. It looks like something out of Jurassic Park. Its stem is round and green with these white coarse hairs, but it's covered in these very unique purple splotches and blotches. Its leaves are large and deeply lobed with pointed edges, and it has big white flower umbels. Now, the key differences between giant hogweed and common hogweed are mainly its stem. Giant hogweed's stem is covered in unique purple splotches and blotches. Common hogweed has no purple splotches and blotches. And common hogweed's leaves, its tips, even though it's deeply lobed and they look very similar, its tips are much more rounded, whereas giant hogweed's leaves are much more pointed. And they both have very similar flower umbels, apart from giant hogweed's flowers are much larger than common hogweed's flowers. And also, common hogweed grows pretty much anywhere, whereas giant hogweed grows pretty much exclusively alongside rivers. So why is it so important to be able to tell the difference between common hogweed and giant hogweed? Well, this is because of the giant hogweed's sap, which is very, very phototoxic. What does this mean? It means that if you get the sap of giant hogweed on your skin, it genetically modifies it, messing with its UV rays, protection and melanin. And this means that whenever the sun shines on this part of the skin that's been touched by the sap, it will severely blister. You may have seen pictures of people being burnt by this plant in the news. I'll put some pictures up now, but viewer discretion is advised. You see, these very savage blisters are caused by the giant hogweed's sap. It genetically modifies the skin and causes the UV rays to burn you. And not only does it cause them to burn you, but these burns aren't temporary. Because it's genetically changed the skin it's touched, your skin will now burn and blister for years to come, just from the touch of sunlight. Now, phototoxic sap isn't exclusive to just giant hogweed. Common hogweed also has phototoxic sap, for example. So does parsnips, apart from the phototoxic chemicals within common hogweed and many other plants are nowhere near as powerful as the ones in giant hogweed. This is why it's so dangerous. It's beginning to rain a little bit, but as a famous Bob Marley once said, some people feel the rain, others just get wet. Now, once you learn how to understand common hogweed, this plant is actually edible. Now, it's commonly eaten when it's fresh and young, the young shoots, but the plant should always be cooked first to reduce these phototoxic chemicals and make it easier on the digestive system. So early in spring, you can collect the fresh shoots. Then later in the year, before the flower buds open, you can collect what's known as wild broccoli. And this is the hogweed's flower umbels before they've opened. They create a dense, very nice smelling and flavoursome bud. These flowers then open and once pollinated will transform into these seeds. And you can roast these seeds to make a spice alternative. Hogweed seeds is a famous spice all throughout history. You can also use the roots too, but you'd have to boil them a lot. And because the plants are perennial, I wouldn't advise doing this because the plant can grow back year after year, providing an abundance of wild food for both people and wildlife. Now, just a little word of caution, it is recommended that because common hogweed has mild phototoxic effects, that if you're collecting it on a sunny day, that you should wear gloves. And it is recommended, of course, that you cook this plant or roast the seeds before eating it. But don't let this put you off eating this wild and free food source, because it's just a wild and free vegetable. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and it's just as good for you as any organic veggie that you'd buy from the store. Now, common hogweed isn't just a wild and free vegetable rich in vitamins, minerals and antioxidants. It's also a wild edible and medicinal herb. You see, common hogweed has many health benefits, many medicinal effects. Firstly, it's antispasmodic. What does that mean? It means it's good for helping muscles to relax, so you can use it for things like cramps. It's a diuretic, like the dandelion, meaning it can help our body flush out toxins by helping us to pee. It's also a mild expectorant, like mullein. It can help us to cough up and release that lower lung mucus, and it's said to help with fertility and impotence. But I'd recommend, if you're suffering with them type of ailments, if you're a man, to look into pine pollen, because that actually contains testosterone. I just can't get over the beautiful scent of the common hogweed's flowers. It has such a unique musky fragrance. It's not floral like many other flowers. It has much more of a deeper country fresh air tone. What's really cool about learning about wildflowers is often when we head out into the countryside and we breathe in that fresh air, the countryside air, I'm sure you know what I mean, it almost overwhelms us with its beauty. And the more flowers you learn how to understand, the more you can kind of pick up the fragrances from the individual flowers in the air, and you kind of get a good idea of what the fresh country air is being made up of, these fragrances. Now, to finish on some history, some fantastic folklore, the common hogweed's folklore is often very kind and gentle. Why? Well, people have always loved this plant because all throughout history it's provided them with free food and medicine. This is why the common hogweed is often said to be protective and healing and be able to protect you against evil such as witchcraft. Whereas the giant hogweed, for example, has a much more eventful and malicious folklore, and it's said to be associated, of course, with the giants. It's said that giants used to love to eat giant hogweed and they'd use it as walking sticks, and it was said they even grew in the garden of the giants. And one story tells that giant hogweed actually comes from the gods were annoyed with a giant because he was evil, so they transformed him and cursed him to become the giant hogweed. And it's said that when it burns you, this is that evil giant still being malicious to this very day. So there we have it, the common hogweed, a beautiful wild edible and medicinal herb that provides an abundance of food and medicine for both wildlife and people. A plant that's often misunderstood today that brings a lot of joy into our world. And I hope I've helped open the world of the common hogweed for you today. As always, it's been a pleasure. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and share this video. It really helps our channel to grow so we can continue devoting ourselves to creating our nature-inspired education that we believe should exist in the world. If you want to own all the knowledge just like this in book form, check out our awesome series of books, Knowledge to Forage. Sign up to our Follow Along Foraging if you wish to receive our monthly educational subscription packs. All the people that subscribe to our Follow Along Foraging, we're very grateful because this also helps fund our videos. But most importantly of all, take care of yourselves and I'll see you all next time. Peace.
Hogweed, you're a commoner, ununique, a common weed. You'll never be as notorious or as famous as me. Unfazed, hogweed never surrenders. In its natural gifts it gleams, dancing in the gentle breeze of nature's bliss it dreams. Hogweed needs no grand approval from others or from kin, especially not from its toxic big brother. To thrive it looks within.